This podcast provides information to help esports professionals identify and approach legal problems. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. Legal information is not the same as legal advice, which is an application of law to a party's specific set of circumstances.
You should not and are not authorized to use this podcast as a source of legal advice. And the information in this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between the Law of Esports podcast, any of the lawyers or affiliates of the podcast, and any consumer of this podcast.
Welcome to the Law of Esports podcast, the number one podcast that discusses legal issues as they apply to the world of esports. My name is Jake Hicks, and I'm an attorney that represents teams, leagues, and organizations.
And my name is Nefi Lopez, and I'm an attorney that represents players, streamers, and personalities.
And today we have another installment of our Pro Ops series in which we interview industry professionals from the world of esports, competitive video games, and all the content creation and business that goes into the industry that we love so much. And today we are very excited because we have a content creator that's very near and dear to our hearts, whose content we consume all the time, and that is Mavriq. NYSL Mavriq, content creator for the New York Subliners. If you catch him on Twitter, it's at MAVRIQGG. That's Mavriq GG, one of our good friends. Mr. Mavriq, welcome.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we appreciate it, man. And we were talking before the podcast about some of the content you've created and how some of it's analytical, some of it's hyper informative in regards to Warzone. And Nefi and I have had really busy dockets lately, but usually the first thing we do in the morning is check Twitter for Warzone updates on the new meta, on the new map size, on all these things. And then we're talking about it in our group chat. And so we actually were very familiar with your content and with your way of creating content before we actually got to meet you. So this is a really cool experience for us. Of course, man.
Yeah, and we're not that good, so we kind of depend on the meta. So we rely heavily on what the best guns with the least kick. Otherwise, we're not going to get any kills, and that's frustrating. So we all know that. Yeah. So
don't worry.
Hey, well, we appreciate the content you put out, man. So, I've obviously you and I have interacted before, but one of the things is obviously the content you put out is cool, but I really want to give everybody a chance to kind of get to know Mavriq a little bit more. And so, as you know from the episodes you've seen in the past, let's start off by talking a little bit about your background, right? Like, where are you from, man?
All right. Grew up in Houston, Texas, back in the year, I was born in the year 1998.
That's right.
So I'm 24 years old. I guess that's young. Some people say it's young. I feel old though among a lot of my peers. There's like guys out here winning 10K tourneys at like 18. But yeah, grew up in Houston all my life, Texas boy. And I guess I'm like a content creator that has a decent following. I wouldn't consider myself, like huge, like Tim the Tap Man. I try my best to make informative content. If I see something that's either misinformed or being misinterpreted, I try to clarify. So whether it's stuff about anti-cheat, whether it's a lawsuit, with the cheat provider, pretty much anything and everything having to do with Call of Duty, but not just Call of Duty, because that is my primary focus, but things with the gaming industry. So, for instance, Halo's anti-cheat or really anything with the gaming industry, any sort of BS goes down, whether it's a lawsuit or a big expose about Bethesda. I try to talk about that kind of stuff because I'm really passionate about the industry overall. But yeah, most of my content on my page, you'll see Warzone, heavily related with Warzone, and the occasional Call of Duty post for standard multiplayer here or there. And yeah, I'm signed to a CDL team. For those that don't know, the Call of Duty League. I'm signed with a CDL team as a primarily TikTok content creator, but I also, have made and worked on different pieces of content for them. Sometimes, you may see me on their Twitter page talking about, here's a Scuff gaming tip, stuff like that. I try to work within, the small little details of gaming that people don't always notice, whether it's stuff like controller settings or actually, putting the time in and training to become a better player. Stuff that doesn't always get talked about because, the metas and gun stats are, a lot of people talk about that kind of stuff, but when it comes to like small details, I try to make my money there.
Well,
so yeah,
awesome.
that's me.
That's so we're, as lawyers, we always appreciate the attention to detail that it requires to analyze the small, minute parts of the game that aren't talked about everywhere. And so we've always been really appreciative of you bringing that to the table. But I kind of want to go back.
Appreciate
so as a young Houston kid, Nefi and I are both in Houston now. I'm actually from a small town about an hour and a half outside of Houston. How did you get into video games originally?
Ooh, all right. That one, there's some history there.
We're
I would say my
it.
earliest memory is probably, God knows what I was actually playing, but my earliest memory, there's a picture of me somewhere like sitting in my diaper on the PC playing something. I don't remember what it was. My earliest memory is probably going over to my cousin's house, sitting on his lap while he's playing, pretty sure it was Counter-Strike 1.6, sitting on his lap while he controls a mouse and I control a keyboard. Being a toddler, I didn't realize that Counter-Strike, you kind of had to stop moving to be 100% accurate. So we weren't winning many games when doing that little setup, that weird
awesome.
split input action. Yeah, a lot of GTA Vice City, a lot of GTA San Andreas, mainly me watching my cousin play it while he, screws around in the game. It kind of developed that love. And then I also remember having an N64. Now, this was past the N64's life cycle. This was probably mainly the PS2 era, but I had an N64. We didn't have a lot of money. So I was playing a lot of like older games before my time, stuff like GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time,
classics, man,
Donkey Kong 64, yeah, Mario Kart 64, that kind of stuff. So I didn't really always, have the latest and greatest. In fact, I think the only reason why I actually got to play stuff like Call of Duty 4, Halo 3, Halo Reach was because, if I remember correctly, middle school, there was an after-school program at a church, and they actually had Xbox 360s, PS3s set up in like the upstairs area of the church. And we would go there, me and my friends would go there, and we'd just essentially be playing COD 4 in a LAN environment against each other. We'd be playing a little bit of World at War, a lot of Halo 3, and that kind of really, that all those experiences from when I was pretty much a toddler to when I was in middle school culminated in me essentially, as soon as I was able to, get some money together, get things like a PS3 with Modern Warfare 2 on it, eventually Black Ops 1, eventually making the switch over to PC with Battlefield 3.
Yeah.
A lot of Counter-Strike when Counter-Strike, when CSGO dropped. A lot of money made trading skins and stuff like that.
Dang.
But yeah,
So-
I turned into like a new age like crypto bros are now. It was like that for me when I was when Counter-Strike skin trading was in its like heyday.
Do you remember
awesome,
the
man.
first? Do you remember the first like competitive tournament that you played in?
It was probably an online tournament. I think
Yeah.
it may have been a wager, like a Game Battles wager.
Okay.
And, shit. It may have been a Game Battles wager like Black Ops 1 probably.
Yeah.
But I was never very like I was playing on Wi-Fi. Internet was pretty bad. It was like standard
Wireless
DSL.
controllers, yeah.
Yeah, so like I never really got into competitive until probably CS:GO. I'd played I tried to get into the competitive scene for Battlefield 3, but like I just didn't enjoy that setup for Battlefield. I'd pretty much kind of stuck to like Bad Company 2, like your standard multiplayer affair that's like casual, right? So Call of Duty, Battlefield. But yeah, first foray into competitive was probably, and like grinding competitive. I mean like really grinding it, playing like every day, warming up for hours would be Counter-Strike, CSGO.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it would probably have to be that, yeah.
And it sounds like you were involved in esports pretty early on, just video games in general. It sounds like they've, and it's funny because a lot of people, we're obviously a little bit older than you, but not by much. But a lot of people your age and our age, we grew up with video games. Obviously, for us, it was a little bit later. It was probably around, well, actually, probably was pretty early on because Jake and I are sub 30 or right around 30.
Nefi, what was your first tournament? What was your first tournament that you played in, like for money? Like a real deal. Not like with your friends, but like.
I think I was a freshman in high school. So it was somewhere around 2005 or 2006. I lived in Vegas at the time, and we had gone, I can't remember where it was because my buddy's mom had to drive us because obviously my mom wasn't going to get in a car and drive us somewhere in California. I think it may have been in LA or I don't remember where exactly it was, but it was some like big LAN tournament. It was a Gears of War tournament. And it wasn't anything major. It was like something small hosted by, I think it might have been GameStop or Game Battles or something like that. And it wasn't anything major. But I remember we had, I think we had to qualify for it if I remember correctly. I don't know, but dude, it was, we weren't very good compared to everybody else. And then, when I was in high school, I tried to compete. I remember at the time, Micro Center, or not Micro Center, the Microsoft Store used to actually host local like LAN tournaments for like Years of War or whenever their esports like revived. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember specifically for Halo. I think it was like Halo Reach. I specifically remember going to the mall and there was like a tournament set up. It was a Reach. I think it was like a Halo 3 ODST tourney for like celebrating before Reach came out or something like that.
And in the Houston Galleria, they used to have those. And so I used to go to those more than not. Me, a buddy of mine tried to do like game battles, and we would have like scrims, and we'd have to score points to make it. But anyways, we're going to talk about you. So obviously, video games played a major part in your life, and it's it sounds like obviously you play with your family and you had a great time, and it's been such a large part of your life. But at what point did it turn from a hobby into like a potential career, or whenever you started like, I need to really put more time into it?
I would say like when I started grinding a lot of Counter-Strike, I wasn't creating content per se, but I was making a good amount of money trading skins, selling skins on like alternate marketplaces. Valve has clamped down on those hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially after all the gambling controversies. Yeah. But yeah, there was some gambling aspect involved too. I remember I lost a lot of skins on one of the most notorious fiascos of all time, the iBuyPower match fixing scandal. I remember losing a good amount of stuff on that.
Yep.
I remember losing a lot of skins on CS:GO Lounge when I think it was NIP used like an exploit, a pixel jump, and they could see through part of the map, and I think they beat like Virtus Pro. I had money on Virtus Pro, and the decision got overturned, but CS:GO Lounge didn't. So like that kind of stuff. I remember like being like, oh wow, this could like at least until I get to high school, or while I'm in high school, I can at least use this for pocket money. I don't have to like push carts around. So that was like my first foray.
When you were doing,
I'd always
trading,
remember.
Oh, I was like, were you creating content throughout this time?
At that point, no, but I'd always wanted to. I have a channel out there somewhere. This was, I don't remember the name, but like the thing is I distinctly remember like watching guys like Hutch, Anders, Mr. Sark, even like Dr. Disrespect on back in the Machinima days, and being like, yeah, like I want to do this, but at the time like my parents didn't have money. I didn't really know of any way to get stuff like the Hop Hog or even a Dazzle, and forget having like a PC capable of editing any of that stuff. So it was, I think I like done a couple videos with like a shitty like camera that my dad had gotten from like Circuit City, and like just pointing it at the TV.
That's the name I haven't heard in a while. Circuit City.
Yeah, that dates me, I swear. At 24, that dates me. But like that was like my first foray, and then when Crysis 3 came out, I remember my PC was kind of capable of running it. And I like made content around that, because I think I remember making a video. Oh my god! Of course it was a news video, but it was me breaking down like the PS4's like announcement. With like Crysis 3 footage in the background, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I was breaking down the PS4 announcement, talking about how it's going to change everything.
I was going to say, because I remember Crysis was a big deal at the time because of the graphics. Everything was supposed to be amazing, and it turned out not to be such a fantastic game, but it did look nice.
Yeah, so, Crysis 3 especially was that one of those games where it was like, oh,
yeah,
graphically amazing. gameplay wise,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
well, it's
so
good for testing PCs. But yeah.
yeah, and you did the CS:GO along with the skins. Were you also trying to get it? You said you were trying to get into the competitive scene.
yeah, a little bit. See, it was mainly, if I'm being honest, if I was being honest with myself at the time, I didn't have a chance. Like, yeah, I could get to, higher ranks in ESEA, Face It, and even like the base matchmaking. But in reality, it's kind of like, I'm going to use a sports analogy here, right? But it's like Division I basketball players are, really, really great at what they do, but they don't hold a candle to guys in the NBA.
Right.
And that's like a large majority of D1 players. So, I guess I was closer to your average Counter-Strike player than I was to someone like Simple, right? Despite, grinding ranks. So like, if I'm being honest with myself, and we can get to advice later, I wanted to, but I probably wouldn't have. Like, I was not that naturally gifted.
Yeah.
At the time, unironically, my gifts kind of lied in teaching people stuff. So like I would teach like, strats to people for money. I would teach, I did a little bit of coaching where it was like, okay, this is how you break down this angle on Dust 2, a bunch of stuff like, like show me a replay and just doing like VOD reviews with people, that kind of stuff. I actually was, now looking back at it, way better at than actually, going straight on competitive as a player.
Okay.
Well, so when did you decide to move and really dedicate time to creating content for video games?
Yeah, because every attempt before, I guess, let me give me a second. Let me rewind real quick. All right. So when I really started taking it seriously was probably, I guess, when did the pandemic start? I swear to God,
2020.
These past couple years have been
March of 2020.
2020. We're just gonna say March of 2020, because I was in my last year of college, and essentially it was a lot of like school from home, that kind of stuff. So I started streaming a lot actually, to like 3 viewers, a laptop, my friends, 3 to 10 viewers, whatever. But really, it wasn't like going anywhere, obviously, and I wasn't taking it super seriously until I started really looking at this app called TikTok. Looking at this app called TikTok, and people were telling me to download it and stuff like that. It was a way to keep in touch with friends, like stay up to date on trends during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right.
So I started, one day I came across something on my For You page. I don't remember what video it was. I think it was... Oh, that's right. It was like, I've just exposed every COD YouTuber and they're all using a Cronus. And I was like, hold up, wait a minute. I know what a Cronus is. Come on, it's not an aimbot, dude.
Right.
Like it's a macro device. I'm sitting there like telling myself this. And I'm like, this is, maybe I
need
can
to
make
address
something.
this.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that prior to that, it was just like, I think I was putting up like sniping clips or whatever, maybe. I think it was like sniping clips, the occasional, like, here's how you fix FPS, in Warzone. It was like random shit. I don't even remember. I think there was like one where I was talking about like price gouging with sneakers was a TikTok I made. So it was like random stuff like that. And then I'm like, hold on. I addressed this. This video did well. I can start talking about other stuff. I talked about matchmaking systems, given my prior experience as like, working at these big companies, whether it's social media, whether it's a standard Fortune 500 company. Like I have a background in this tech space as a developer, and also as like a stats guy. So I'll talk about this stuff to the best of my ability and explain why things aren't the way they seem. And that stuff kind of gained me some traction.
Okay. Well, let me interject real quick. So you kind of mentioned that there was one video that did really well. Which one was it? Was the one where you addressed the Cronus thing, or was there another video?
I think the Cronus thing was after. I think the first one was like matchmaking. It may have been matchmaking. I think the first one was matchmaking. It was something about how like it's this patent. The patent's been around since like 2017, but it always like pops up every year. And people act like it's something brand new. And it was, I think it was like, oh yeah, the Call of Duty's nerfing you. It's adjusting your accuracy. And I talked about why, the actual systems that are used, and it's more engagement based. And I started talking about EOMM, and then that stuff, I think like a couple people made videos on my TikToks. And that kind of gained me like my first 5,000, 10,000 followers. Maybe I think it was like my first 5,000 followers or something like that on TikTok. And it was like videos that were made like just straight up like off my, front facing camera.
That's awesome.
So you start making content on TikTok. At what point did you really start to get the attention of like orgs? For example, at some point you signed with NYSL. How long were you content creating before somebody like NYSL reached out to you and said, hey, we're interested in having you join the team?
So oddly enough, I know, what's the saying where it's preparation meets opportunity? That's kind of what happened with NYSL. I don't want to say it was luck, and luck obviously played some role, but, and you're going to laugh. I had TikTok open, I was scrolling, and I came across a Toronto Ultra video, and it had this, but it wasn't like your standard like org content where it was like someone that was already a part of the org or big. It was someone that I had seen make like a meme video about Warzone before. I was like, wait, this guy's familiar. And I was able to find that video that I had originally seen him on, and he only had like 30K followers. I was like, wait a minute. This guy, he's not like huge on TikTok. I wonder. So I pulled up an entire list of all the CDL teams at the time. And this was like near the end of the Modern Warfare season, I think. Maybe it was just before the Cold War season. I pulled up a big list of all the CDL teams, went one by one finding their contact information. If I couldn't find their contact information, I would try to slide into their Twitter DMs, and a lot of them, a good amount, had theirs open. If I can find this, this might be helpful for your edit. I'll send it to you if I can find it. But it was essentially template of me saying, hey, this is who I am. And at the time I was only at like 15 or 20K followers. I know I'm small, but this is what I think I can bring to your organization. TikTok is growing, and a lot of companies need to have a presence on TikTok. Short form content, even if it's not on TikTok, is still the future. Other companies have had other social media platforms have had histories of copying said features from other platforms that experience exponential growth. There's a great opportunity here. Here's some of my content. Please let me know if you're interested. And guess how many replied to me? One.
I was gonna say all of them, but
no, it was one. One org reached back out, and that was Anbox, which is the parent company of NYSL. Anbox is now NYXL, for those that don't know. But yeah, they were the only ones that reached back out to me. Had a meeting. They're like, we're interested. Got my first trial run contract. It was like $75 a video or something like that. And yeah, I think at the time they were only at like 15K followers. And immediately my first two videos, first video was like 900K views in like a day. Second video was like 400K views in a day. They're like, oh, welcome aboard.
This is great. Yeah. We like this.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
that's really cool.
Dang,
So were you involved in the competitive Call of Duty scene before the CDL? Because I think Modern Warfare 2019 was the first year that the CDL existed.
Yeah. So it was the first year the CDL existed. If I'm being honest, I really only cared about Search and Destroy in Modern Warfare. I didn't really care to watch the CDL. I only really started watching the CDL because I was, affiliated with an org.
Right.
Just to me, it's like, when I watch esports, I'm watching Counter-Strike. I'm watching maybe a little bit of League. But yeah, usually it's Counter-Strike. And then, people running like Search and Destroy tourneys. But that's really that's really my extent of competitive that I cared about at the time.
Okay.
And then obviously like Warzone comp. But like Warzone comp I always looked at as a joke, and I still kind of do. But yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Well, before we get into that, I have one other question, because I think a lot of people find themselves in the situation that you were in at the time, where they're creating content on their own. They love to be part of an organization somewhere. So at the time when you were asking, or I I use the term applying loosely because you were really just, building it from the ground up. But when you were asking to be a part of these orgs, what was the frequency of content that you were putting out on a daily or weekly basis?
So, and this is where it kind of gets sucky, I would say. I was having a good amount of momentum, but at the time, I didn't really know how to really take advantage of that momentum, because it would be like, oh, like I don't want to break too far out of my niche, but I also don't want to resort to like TMZ level content, because like, like I don't want to be like, oh, this is what's happening when it's not, or like spread, bullshit. So like really like every time I would be scrolling TikTok, see something, make a video, call it like that's cap, and then that's cap's, subtitle, whatever it may be. And it'd just be me explaining stuff. And sadly, I really wish I put out like at least a video a day, because I was doing maybe like 2 videos a week.
Okay.
2, maybe 3 videos if I was lucky, because I was like, I can do TikTok. I can do good TikTok content and stream. And, like work on my skills for my actual career. That was not a good idea, because then when I added NYSL onto my plate, I kind of fell behind on like everything. Not to mention, just before I had the opportunity to join NYSL, I developed like this weird migraine condition for like, I would say 6 months, and I started taking medicine for it. So like that whole thing, kind of like the whole migraine debacle, put me out of commission for like 3 months almost.
Jeez.
Damn.
Yeah. So like I really screwed up my first go around of success.
Okay.
Success, whatever you
And
want to call it.
so whenever you were putting out content at the very beginning, you were doing 1 or 2 or 3 videos a week. Was it because you were streaming, or was it because you were working? Because I know it was around the time that you graduated from college. Did you have like a daytime job and you couldn't create as much content? How were you balancing your time?
Yeah, so I would say it was mainly a daytime job slash streaming. Yeah, so daytime job slash streaming. It was, like, yeah, you're working from home and you have more time, but as like a new grad, you want to try to, make the best impression possible. And at the time, it's not like I was making money from content creation. So it was, like I need to concentrate on work. Otherwise, I'm not going to have an income or healthcare. So like,
Exactly.
Yeah, because of that, it was a lot of like, okay, we're going to do the best job possible for my job. We're going to make the best impression possible. So it was a lot of like double, triple checking everything I did, putting more time in than I would normally. And then when I would stream, I'd be tired. And then by the end of the stream, do I want to make content? I'll work on it a little bit. I'll work on this video and then, end it so I can actually wake up at a decent time for work tomorrow. And that works for some people.
Yeah.
But ultimately it led to me running down and developing that weird migraine issue for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So you think you may have developed that from just being tired and continuing to...
Tired, stressed, God knows what else, maybe because my diet didn't change. I was still eating healthy. I was still working out the same amount as I was in college, even during COVID, except it was at home. So.
Were you seeing any success with the streaming? Because it sounds like you obviously were investing a lot of time into streaming early on. Or was most of your success coming from TikTok?
So I would say bulk of the success was coming from TikTok, bulk of the views. At the time, I really didn't even know how to transfer people over, because it's not like I was doing stream clips, right? It's not like I was like, oh, funny stream moment, 60K views, and then people come to the stream for that. It wasn't like that. This was the other issue, was that my content on stream was different from the content on TikTok. So people, there's not really a lot of crossover. At around like 1,000 followers, you get a stream key, and or not stream key. At 1,000 followers, you get the ability to go live on TikTok, and like that kind of would bring people over. But unironically, I actually found more success. I found more success on Twitch, and I'm using the term like relative to like straight up a Warzone stream. I found a lot of success when I was doing like, I guess like not just chatting, but like chatting about like basketball, right? So like going over basketball, or slash NBA, and like breaking down stats and be like, oh, this is why this is a bad take. And even stuff like gaming news. Like I'd go over, like I created like this little thing called the docket, before I would actually get into playing Warzone, where I would look at like different gaming news, or like different updates for Call of Duty news, and kind of break that down. And the whole idea was to turn that into YouTube content. But as you guys know, with this podcast, editing large, like these large 2-hour sessions, is a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
and especially if you're doing it every day.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Now, if you're doing it almost every day, like 3 times a week, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing it once a week. We're doing it once a week, and that's hard. And by we, I mean I'm doing it once a week on top of, being an actual trial lawyer. And, I was telling Jake like today, I had 3 depositions, for example, which was just this brain-numbing work because you have to sit there and you have to ask questions or listen to other people ask questions. And then you come home and you're like, man, I've got this, hour and a half video, and I have to, clean up the audio, sync it with the video, and add all these extra things. And obviously our stuff is not as intricate as whatever you're putting out, but man, it's a lot of work. So, a lot of people that I don't think a lot of people don't understand or appreciate the difficulty or the time or the sort of just the grinding that it is to edit videos. It's hard work, man.
Yeah.
No, but not only that, it's some people are really gifted at just kind of going off the cuff. Some people are really, really good at just like coming up with like a really structured, not just sentence, but like a really structured analysis or thoughts, on the fly. I was not that kind of streamer. Like I couldn't just like do that. I would have to put in, an hour or 2 before the stream to kind of come up with what I'm going to talk about, bullet points, maybe structured arguments, stuff like that actually makes sense so that so everything can run as smoothly. So the edit would go smoothly.
Right.
And I'll tell you, rarely did the edit ever go smoothly. So like, I think I kind of came to the conclusion that like, I'm not like a naturally talented live streamer. I have talent like recording and editing content and coming up like writing a script to have something.
I was going to say, yeah, because that's a skill.
Well.
Yeah, that's a skill in of itself. We've learned is having structure. A lot of guys are just naturally entertaining, right? A lot of guys they're just naturally funny or whatever it is. But the hard part where a lot of people kind of, because you'll have those, and those are very, there's not very many content creators that are just naturally entertaining and funny. The best of the best are, but a lot of the really good content creators like yourself, for example, are guys that can put, a plan together and execute it well. A lot of the content that you create is very calculated, which I think is good. I think that's it fits your style, and obviously you're good at it. And so one of the things that we've learned, and from just talking to content creators and streamers, is a lot of viewers, they can see through the BS. They can see whenever you're not being genuine. And, and they know whenever somebody, on their live streams are, these goofy guys that are just saying a bunch of really stupid stuff. And then they have like this really serious TikTok where they're like, oh, let me analyze this. And you're just like, dude, that's not you. And it causes, it just, people like following genuine content creators. And obviously you're good at
the other thing.
Structure.
Well, the other thing that Nefi and I have talked about a couple of times is that your content and our content is different than a lot of people's. We don't boot up a podcast and just react to another video or make jokes about Fall Guys or like whatever, like we're analyzing. Yeah. Like we're analyzing an issue. And so on top of trying to explain it to your audience, which requires some structure, you also don't want to be wrong. And that requires research as well. And so when we're talking about cryptocurrency or NFTs and regulations and the regulatory framework, we still have to update all of our base of knowledge to make sure something new hasn't come out that would make us wrong when we release it,
Yeah. And I bet you guys probably feel the same way, but like you'll every now and then, in your recommended, you'll see like this one person, you're like, wow, I see this person I recommended a lot. You'll click on the channel, you'll see, wow, this person puts out like 4 videos a day. How is that? And it's like, it's I don't want to call it a grift, but a lot of it is just like they read an article in front of you. Yeah. And it's like,
just low effort.
Cool, thanks for the text to speech. Essentially. Yeah, like very low effort. Like it kind of becomes an obvious grift where it's like they don't exactly know what they're talking about. It's like a bullshit artist.
Right.
And like there's that. And there's people who just like, yeah, right. It's like, okay, I could have put this in a text to speech and gotten the same result.
Yep.
And that's like, you'll see that and you'll be like, well, I mean, I guess there's a market for it because this is getting a lot of views. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Right. If you saw our outlines, if you saw our substantive outlines for some of our substantive episodes, they look like we're about to take a law school final.
Yeah. Yeah. We could probably do CLE, continuing legal education, dudes. It's tough.
I mean, like I have like 20 pages just in like this single Google Doc. It's just titled short form contents, 20 pages worth of it, not just ideas, but like whole scripts. And it's like, you know, that feeling you get when you put something like that together, edit, you know, put it out there and it bombs. And then you see, you know, you're scrolling through TikTok and you just see like, and this is like the new TikTok meta. It's essentially guy reacting, game at the bottom, and then like TV show in the middle, or like another YouTube video in the middle. And they're not playing the game, but it's like the game is like a Minecraft speed run, or like it's like a map in Fortnite creative.
I've seen it.
And it's like a Darman video in the middle, and then it's just a guy at the top. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's funny." Yeah.
And they have millions of interactions and views.
Yeah, you're like, how the fuck does this have like 300K likes? It doesn't make any sense.
I have not seen that. I've thankfully been able to avoid that. But it does remind me, because I think now we're so far beyond in the content creation mode where you do have to be like creative in how you edit a video, especially your short form videos, the way you're editing them, where it's frames, gameplay. Because it used to be like early YouTube, like 2012, 2013, you would just boot up a gameplay and talk over it. And that was the
commentary.
Content.
And that was the meta, you know, on YouTube not too long ago, you know, back before Leafy got kicked out. That's what he would do. He would just play whatever whatever was going on in the
Surf
background.
map on CS.
Exactly. And then just talk over whatever topic was going on. And that's what everybody was doing at that time.
Nate Shot would play, Nate Shot would just boot up a gameplay and be like, today I'm going to talk about the reasons why the tournament format is not great. And it would just be like a gameplay and he would talk about it. But now you have to be a lot more dynamic. And I think it is harder to consistently put out quality content in today's environment than it used to be.
Well, I mean, like, again, like you guys mentioned, some people are just naturally entertaining, like with what they'll say. Some people will say some outlandish things, and that's their form of entertainment for their audience. And it kind of just depends on I guess how you present yourself to your audience and what your audience
100%.
wants from you.
And so you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, you're having to balance the time. That's probably one of the hardest parts as to being a content creator. But you know, and I don't want to get personal, but has your opportunity with NYSL and the work you've been doing, has that sort of catapulted you into being able to turn this into a full-time job, or are you still having to, you know, kind of do other things to kind of keep the lights on?
Well, I mean, it's not like I'm not doing other things out of necessity, so that's nice.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not like I'm you know, making full-time money, you know, with NYSL. I think even a lot of creators that are signed to orgs or other CDL teams that are like their prime thing is, you know, content creation, they still have to rely on their other, you know, personal account forms of revenue, right? Whether it's sponsorships on their personals, stream income, YouTube income. Like, it's not like you're fully employed by the org. I mean, that's not like that's not for everyone. Like, I know some people are making a lot of money, but like that's kind of like an org by org, creator by creator, you know, what you bring to the table basis. But for me, you know, it's nice to have that money. Like, I can use it to, you know, get something for my parents if there's an emergency. I can use it, you know, to that's really all just like savings. Whatever money I make from content either goes back into content or it's just put on the side as savings. Because I still have my you know, my day job to where I can, you know, I have my healthcare and I have, you know, like rent and food and stuff like that. So
all the essentials.
Yeah, you know, it's one provides the survival and the other one provides the COD points, I guess.
Well, okay, so this is a legal show at the end of the day, and I know that you and Nefi worked on this together when you were moving into NYSL. But as you were approaching an org and as you were approaching your talk with NYSL, obviously I don't want to get into anything that's attorney-client privileged. But did you have any specific concerns going from an unsigned content creator and moving into being a signed content creator with an established org?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah. So did you have any
I just want to
concerns?
make sure I answer it correctly.
Yeah. So did you have any concerns coming from someone that was unsigned? So it's not like you were going from one org to another, but you were unsigned and then going into being signed with an org. Did you have any concerns that you were looking out for as you were making that approach?
Well, the two known quantities that I kind of had on my mind was this is my first ever, right? Like this is the first time I've ever negotiated any contract outside of like salary for day job. 2 is that I'm a creator on not just on a lesser known organization at the time, but also on a newer platform. So like there are always worries when it is a newer platform. It's, if I'm responsible for X amount of growth, how does that help me monetarily, opportunity wise, whatever it may be, but also how much of a safety net is there? Because this is a newer platform. Like not everything is figured out when it comes to views, when it comes to expected growth, any KPIs, like, am I going to have KPIs? That's TikTok, like stuff. TikTok isn't YouTube really, right? Where like, Subbox is involved and there should be a minimum amount of views coming in, right? Like TikTok works differently with their algorithm. So
will you explain KPIs
those are
real quick for our audience?
So like key performance indicators, anything that's like, certain amount of growth that you're maintaining per month, certain amount of views that you're getting per month, followers or subs if this is YouTube, just stuff to know that you're moving in the right direction, really. So like your analytics page, for instance, right? Like watch time, would there be anything like that? And as a novice, I don't know if orgs care about that stuff. That's the kind of stuff I would care about when it comes to like performance indicators. Like where, these numbers tell you, these numbers are there for a reason. They're there to help you know if you're moving in the right direction. Do orgs care about that? Is that going to affect me? Is there something in my contract that like stipulates any of that stuff? So like, as a novice, I didn't know. Luckily, that's not really, that's not part of my contract. I don't know if that's part of a contract for any other, creators. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe there's like a certain number of required views a month. But yeah, like that kind of stuff, for example, like I know happens with people that sign contracts for sponsorship with like anything that really has a code, right? So it's like controllers, supplements, some of those guys that get like paid. The people that get paid like monthly as a not an affiliate code where you make, a little bit off the top of the sale, but if you're getting paid monthly in the form of sponsorship, there is usually like a minimum amount of whatever it is, whether it's sales, whether it's visits, whether it's link uses, whatever it is. There's usually some sort of minimum involved that you need to hit. So like, there's always those questions, especially if you're a novice like I was or am.
Yeah. And I think one of the more common questions that I always get whenever somebody reaches out to me is like, "Hey, Nefi, can you help me look over this?" Is people don't know what to be worried about, and I think and which is why that question is hard, because you're like, "Hey, what are you worried about?" And the response that I usually get is, "I don't know," because I don't know what to be worried about, and so that's why it's so important. And you were smart in the way that you approached it, right? You reached out to people that do have the knowledge and you didn't just sign it. A lot of people get offered anything at the very beginning and they're like, well, it's not a big contract, so let me just go ahead. And they just sign it without looking at it, without making any edits. And, it doesn't necessarily put you in a bad spot, but it could potentially prejudice your growth within the organization or your ability to move to a different organization. Right now there's a lot of guys in the Halo world, or, I don't see it as much in CDL because the league is a little more involved, but where guys are stuck on contracts, and even guys that have lawyers are stuck on contracts because they just didn't, not to say they didn't get the right advice, but, you have to think about everything. And that's one of the things I give you props for, man. You were smart about how you kind of approached that situation.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, is that you kind of have to like look out for yourself. Like the loyalty to not just an organization only goes so far, right? Like if there's like a down year or like the economy goes to shit, like it's not like they're gonna be like, oh, thank you for sticking with us during your renewal, but we're gonna have to let you, like that kind of stuff happens, right? It's like there's only so much loyalty there, so it's like you kind of need to make sure. For instance, like I know a lot of people have non-competes. So like, let's say they leave their org, they can't sign with another org for a year, right?
Yep.
I don't know what the standard practice is, but like non-competes happen, and not just in esports, but even, in the normal everyday working world, right?
Right.
So it's that kind of stuff you definitely want to look out for.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, well, I think you had a really good perspective, and I think there's also a huge difference in being someone that's fairly highly educated, who's mature, signing a contract when they're 22 or 23, versus someone that's 16 who is trying to sign a similar deal. That's another thing that Nefi deals with pretty often. But those non-competes too, that's one of the big deals that Nefi and I look at, especially in this space, because it really is an intersection of, kind of sports, but also entertainment. And in entertainment, non-competes are much less common. And so we're working on developing some of those form contracts with other orgs, but that's a good thing to look out for as well. Those non-competes.
100%.
Especially if you're talented like you are, like on air.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we hate, and by we, I mean I, as somebody that represents individuals, is restrictive non-competes. A lot of people will want it, right? Under certain circumstances, as a content creator, if you sign a really good restrictive non-compete, you're kind of screwed if you don't want to work there anymore. But with that being said, we're going to talk about that at an episode in the future we're going to release. But let's kind of change gears a little bit now, and let's talk about more on the sort of the content creation / esports, specifically, your growth to where you are now. Because I mean, obviously we follow on YouTube, as Jake said, or I'm sorry, on Twitter. You regularly interact with some very large guys, and so I kind of want to get a little bit of a sort of behind the scenes. What are some of the biggest content creators that you regularly engage with, and what are some cool experiences where you're like, holy cow, you're looking at it, you kind of have an out of body experience to say, I used to watch this guy, I was a big fan, and now I'm like one of them, and I'm interacting and creating content with them.
Ooh, man. So I mean, like, right off the bat, it's like I regularly interact with a lot of the weapon guys, right? It's like JGod, True Game Data. If you type in like Warzone meta, those guys will come up.
Which we regularly frequent those
like
channels. We regularly visit those YouTube videos.
Yeah. So like those guys, I try to keep in contact with as much as possible. Like with the Fortune's Keep map, me and JGod were talking about like, okay, what is the actual size of this thing? We sat there. I was like, okay, what if I'll try to use this distance in game as a ruler. And then we were like, what if you line up the maps, obviously drop the opacity and line up, like the balloons. Maybe you can get a better gauge on that. It's like that kind of stuff you can collaborate on. Big guys. I mean, I think there was like a tweet. It's my pinned tweet where it was essentially making fun of this cheater that was getting screwed over by the anti-cheat. That video is pinned on my Twitter, and there are all sorts of people interacting with it. Not just like people within the COD sphere, but like people like Trainwrecks, who's a big Twitch streamer. Yeah. Hassan Abi, big Twitch streamer. Like people interacted with that. I'm like, this is kind of cool. It wasn't like a we made it moment, but it was like,
look at me. Look at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about within NYSL?
So stuff like that.
Like, for example, Aiden, who's huge, or do being part of NYSL, has it kind of opened the door to allow you to content create or I guess interact with these guys to help them do whatever?
Yeah. So, whether it's like me at what was it? Most recently in like December at this like NYSL holiday bash in New York, it was, like getting up on stage with Aiden or whether it's, just like at the hotel, like joking around or, at Champs, getting breakfast with the rest of the team, the actual CDL guys, sitting there, or even like,
cool.
Going to Soho in New York. Was it Soho? I don't remember. I think it was like the Gucci store with Paco, with Hydra, like that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool.
Are you going to be at the Major 4?
Yeah. Next week. Get your tickets.
There you go. Nice, dude. So,
although I don't know when this epido's coming out.
I was going to say, hopefully we get it out before.
Yeah. We'll see. We've got a couple things in the pipeline. So, we're trying to kind of get these out, and We're trying to get this stuff
Yeah.
recorded.
Are you going to be at Champs? August 4th through 7th.
We make champs. When we make champs, when we do this, when we complete this Cinderella run and make it into 8th place and make it to champs, I will be there. If not, then I probably won't be there. I'll probably take a normal, summer vacay, even though it's in August.
somewhere.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So kind of heading towards the wrap up. Let's talk about a little bit about some guys that you follow, because I know we got all kinds of people that listen to this podcast. We got a lot of, content creators, a lot of streamers, a lot of pro players, and org owners, and executives. So let's clearly you're a big fan of Call of Duty. You're a big fan of CS:GO. Let's give some shout outs to some of the guys that you really like to watch. Who's your favorite CS:GO player? Somebody that you used to watch or is currently playing, or a caster? I don't know.
Anything simple related, anything he does, I love seeing. I wouldn't really say I'm like a big fan of like one specific person. I tend not to grow too attached to personalities just in the off chance they say or do something that completely ruins my outlook on them. So I try not to get too attached to internet people on the internet. But yeah, like anything really CS:GO related. Sadly, the scene doesn't really have a lot of content, right? Yeah. But yeah, I always love to follow pros, and Simple is probably one of my favorites. Any of the old dudes that used to run, Counter-Strike circles, but now moved over to Valorant, Hiko, Sean Garras, like anybody that was like, Cloud9 related. Yeah, I always, check in, see what they're up to, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so switching, what about to Call of Duty? What were some of the guys that you watched and you're like, holy cow, I really enjoy these guys' content?
And
I know it's kind of tough because you're part of an organization right now and you don't want to be like, oh, I really like, like a lot of the answer that we get is like Optic, right? Those guys are the classic org and they've been around forever. And, I'm going to be honest, my initial, sort of love to esports was because of Optic and the guys at Optic. And so, just if you think of anybody that you're like, man, I really like this person.
Really, like this isn't even like I think I get so caught up in the actual like seriousness right behind COD that the reason why I watch a lot of guys like Hunter TV or T-Mal, like those guys, is because it's genuinely like funny or creative in some way. So it's a break in what I normally do or normally make. So like those guys I love watching.
Okay.
Yeah, like
because it's a break from what you do every day is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. So when I get that notification for Hunter TV, it's like, all right, boys, let's dim the lights, get some water, get some popcorn, and watch a Hunter TV vid. Is usually what I kind of resign myself to. And then also, I guess like one of the big OGs, Hutch, who's pretty much just sticks to Twitch streaming now. Yeah. But yeah, I'm always in that stream, just kind of hanging out.
No, I like Hutch. I'm a big fan of Hutch as well.
I dig Hutch as well. I grew up as a huge Optic fan back in the day. So I think as hundreds of thousands of other people did as well. So
yeah.
Do you still follow
Hutch, Machinima, all that?
Yes, man. R.I.P. Machinima. My goodness. Do you still follow CS:GO competitive?
Not as much anymore, sadly, because it's like I kind of not have to be 100% tuned into COD, but just like there's not enough hours in the day, sadly. Like now I understand what adults were talking about when I was younger. There's just not enough hours in the day.
Oh yeah.
So sadly I can't, but I try to like keep up on the base storylines.
Yeah.
When it comes to like tournaments and stuff like that, and like Simple going on an immediate like crazy MVP level tear, even when his team isn't that great. Kings of Counter-Strike, Grand Slams, that kind of stuff. I try to keep up with, but yeah, it's been a little rough the past couple years.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't blame you. I mean, we totally understand the difficulty of not having enough hours in the day. Like we started out super early this morning and then had a full day worth of work. And then here we are now, and it's all for the love of the game, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like we're willing to put in the hours, even though we had a long day, and it's almost like a breath of fresh air because we're obviously really passionate about our current career, But putting out content, for some reason, Jake and whenever we sit down, we talk about it. We really enjoy it. It's really it's not difficult, and it's not it's kind of hard to use the word grind, because grind indicates that some type of minor negative connotation to it. And so and we love it, and I wouldn't mind coming home from a long day of work and working on it's not good as I am on it, editing a video or editing audio and working on it. So I get what you're saying. So.
There's that, like you said, that grind has like a negative connotation to it, but like, you have to kind of enjoy part of whatever you call grind. Otherwise, if the passion's not there, it's going to show in content.
And
you really don't care.
And it makes that little bit of time you get to enjoy the space that much more special. Because we were, speaking of not having enough hours in the day, we were at IEM Dallas for CSGO.
Oh.
And we had meetings and sponsorship meetings and meetings with clients and doing content. And so even at the event, we only got to see like 3 matches.
Yeah, dude.
So,
I was kind of bummed about that.
But all 3 that we saw were really fun and really cool, and we're really happy to see them. So, but even at a live event, we still only got to squeeze in a little bit of actual watching time.
I know. And we missed a concert too, dude.
I know what that's like.
It was rough. Yeah.
Every year I went to DreamHack in Texas would always be like me getting sidetracked by like watching a Smash tournament or like
Rocket League tournament is one of the one that was really
or actually playing in like the open LAN and just like, oh shit, I missed like all the American teams play. And now it's really bittersweet, and it's one reason why I've kind of like not paid attention as much, because there's not really any good like NA organizations in Counter-Strike anymore. Ever since Valorant kind of took, stole thunder. Yeah, it's like it makes it harder to follow, I would say, because there's like you don't really have that sense of closeness, I would say.
And I definitely agree with the idea that the EU and the non-NA teams are kind of kicking NA's butt. And I think that's part of the reason why CSGO isn't such a massive esport, is because the teams and the skill isn't there. It's not as, I agree with
foundation
you to a degree.
Support
exactly.
There, I would say, for the scene.
We still have some good NA teams, but I tend to agree with the idea that it could be better. It could be a lot better. And that's just something we're going to have to figure out, and there's all kinds of issues going on right now. But that's a whole different conversation that we can have. So let's to sort of kind of cap off this awesome conversation we've had. What do you have going on right now? Obviously, you're working with NYSL. Do you have any big plans coming up? Any projects? Anything going on that you are excited about?
Nothing, groundbreaking. Mainly just going to Major 4, trying to record some content there. Really concentrate on, I would say, high quality YouTube content that's more, if you've seen my latest YouTube video, it's more not just entertaining, but think like documentary style. Think like Jake Tran almost, or any of the documentary guys on YouTube. Something closer to that is kind of where I'm heading YouTube wise.
Nice.
But yeah, I'll just have to see where the where the world takes me, what the world gives me to work with when it comes to stories and stuff, storylines, and I'll go from there as always. But yeah, right now it's mainly just getting through this COD cycle lull until Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 and DMZ, because I love playing Tarkov, but I don't also like the grind of Tarkov. So if you can give me something like that where a normal person like me can enjoy Tarkov-esque gameplay to the fullest, I'm there. So yeah, I'm kind of waiting for the next generation of COD right now. I'm in that holding pattern.
Yeah.
Same.
Okay. So as a closing, what are remind us about all the socials. Because I know obviously your Twitter we're familiar with it, but just so all the audience knows.
Yeah. So over on TikTok, you can find me on my personal @MavriqGG, and those are all my socials. MavriqGG on YouTube, @MavriqGG on TikTok, @MavriqGG on Instagram, and maybe Facebook. I don't remember. It's a dying platform. And then, of course, also on TikTok, you can find me on the Subliners page, where I also make a bunch of content there, @Subliners on TikTok. And, of course, I guess also go ahead and throw them a follow on Twitter, because you'll probably see me via like a scuff video.
They'll see a lot of you. I see enough of you.
Yeah. You'll see me on the Subliners Twitter page as well. So definitely head on over there. But yeah,
Awesome.
that's pretty much where you can find me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, man. It was really awesome to get to talk to you. And obviously, you and I have spoken in the past, and we'll probably continue to have a good relationship in the future. But thank you so much for coming, talking to us, talking to our listeners, and kind of giving us a little insight as to Mavriq and your sort of becoming story. So thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Nefi. I really appreciate being here. Really appreciate, you guys helping me out whenever I have questions. Just the back and forth. I love it. So I really appreciate it. And I look forward to, if you guys ever want me to come back, talk about other stuff, always available.
Look, Warzone 2 coming out, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other stuff that we need to discuss on the legal side, and we need some technical expertise. And I feel like you're one of the guys at the forefront of all that. So definitely plan on having you back, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, for listening to today's episode. Remember, obviously, Mav just gave us all his socials. Remember to follow us as well. You can find the same thing at the Law of Esports on all socials, TikTok. We haven't put any TikTok videos, so don't expect a lot of content there yet.
It's coming.
But on Twitter, the Law of Esports, on YouTube, we recently have revamped our videos. We hired a thumbnail designer, and we're working on developing a lot of obviously the content that we're putting out and the quality and the production. So thank you guys for listening to this episode, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, guys.